Hi, I'm Marty Grizzanti, and this is the Marty Grizzanti Show. As a full-time real estate investor and business owner, I have a real fascination of finding the key principles for business success and personal development. This show is a reflection of my personal mission to find out what truly makes somebody successful in business and in life. We will find tools and tactics that they've used to reach those levels. If you're the type of person that is not satisfied with average and you have a hunger for learning that will never cease, this show is for you. Welcome to the show.
Here's what's crazy, Mark, is that you were maybe one of the first 3 podcasts I ever listened to, because you were one of the OGs on Bigger Pockets. So, all right, here's the deal with my show. So many people ask the same freaking questions, right? When I did my research on you the last couple of days, it's like the same things, and I get it. You got to let people know who you are and where you came from and all that stuff, but Mingya. Guys, if you want to know about Mark Updegraff, go back and listen to all the other podcasts. Right. I'm going to do something different. All right, guys. Nice. This is just what it is. Mark he answers the same questions on all the other podcasts, and then before you know it, before we get to anything good, it's already over. So anyways, just really quickly though, how did you find Bigger Pockets, and how did you get on the show?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's been so long, I don't even know. I think I just stumbled onto the website just doing stupid Google searches for real estate, right? And found Bigger Pockets, got kind of involved in the community, but more as like somebody that didn't know what the fuck they were doing.
Sure.
And asking lots of questions. And I realized pretty quick there's like 20 guys on there that were just like real estate gurus from across the nation, you know, California, Oregon, Florida, the Sun Belt, you name it. They had guys there. And they were all taking time out of their day to answer my stupid questions from like, first time investor. I'm about to buy my first single family house. These guys are doing like apartment complexes. And I was just blown away. I was like, how does this exist? Right. There's no cost of entry. You just get in there, you get into the forum, you start asking questions, and people just, they pay it forward. It was freaking awesome.
It really was insane when I first found Bigger Pockets. This was 2013, and you don't hear about this stuff. I got basically most of my information from Reddit, like all my financial information, and from Reddit first. And then like after you did all the certain things on Reddit, right? Like I was making money as a sales job, and I was like, okay, I'm maxing out my 401k. I'm doing an IRA. Doing all this other stuff. Okay, what's next? And then the last thing somebody wrote was real estate. And they go, where do you find information on real estate? And I said, Bigger Pockets. And this was when the website was all like, wasn't so good. Yeah. And you know what I mean? This was like, I think right as Brandon Turner kind of got on, and he was still a geek, and he didn't really, know much, right? In those first episodes, he had a couple of properties in Washington, right? Like, wow, this dude, he really stumbled into some really cool stuff. But your episode resonated with me. You were a Rochester guy. I was working at my sales job, and I was hearing the story of like, I'm a Nassau guy, science dude, rad scientist, had a cool job, and I went to RIT, was doing some cool stuff with like imagery with cameras and but still science, and I was able to scratch all my itches, but I just wasn't making a ton of money. And I was like, dude, that's me, and I was like, that feels like this is right up my alley. But then you go, and now I'm full-time real estate, and that's what blew my mind. I go, you can do this stuff full-time. So how did you go full-time? Like, I think a lot of people listening are kind of newer, or like I got a lot of people that have, maybe 5, 10, 20 properties, but they still work that full-time job. Was it just, you got to jump and a net will appear? What was your mindset and thought process when you did kind of jump into it?
I got licensed as a realtor, first off, because I needed to subsidize that W-2 income that I lost. So my rationale was like, hey, now I can open the door myself. My agent was more interested in selling houses in the suburbs for, $300K than opening a door on a $50,000 dumper in the inner city. So I was like, well, I'll get my license. I can open the doors. And that was the time of the market when you could write an offer, get it accepted, and the agent would just lock it up for you and like switch it to pending. they're getting calls and they're like, you better close this. I got like 15 calls. These other people want it. It's like, I got this. You got my proof of funds. I'm going to close it. There's no inspection. It's going to be a done deal. And so like just feeling the marketplace back then, I knew that our window of opportunity was closing, that it wasn't going to last forever. And I actually remember going to my broker. I had done some research and I figured out, oh, there's something called an escalation clause. And so I go to my broker and I ask him about the escalation clause. He's like, don't do it. Nobody does it. It's a bad idea. If you do it, you're basically showing your hand to the seller, and then the seller can just counter you and they don't even have to use your escalation clause. Valid point, and to today's market, that might start becoming in effect, right? Because now we're seeing things go past delayed. We're not getting the multiple offers that we used to get. And so if somebody goes and writes this escalation and they've got a top on it and you don't have anything to trigger that escalation, you know what their top is. And you could just reply, boom, yeah, sure, I'll sell it to you. I want it at the top of your escalation. So back then, that was his concern. He's like, he said, I would advise against it. And I said, you know what? Thanks for your advice, but I'm going to do this my way. I started doing escalation clauses. Nobody else even knew what they were. I'd have to explain it to the other agent. Like, no. I'm going to beat the other offer by this margin. I'm going to pay cash. I'm not going to have an inspection. And, sometimes it would work. And sometimes the agents were like, screw you. I'm not taking your escalation. Don't know what it is. Never heard of it. My broker's never heard of it. We're not participating. Pick a freaking number or get out of my face. And so that was kind of how things started when the window was closing and things were heating up. We went from an environment where early bird got the worm. You go in, you write a strong offer, boom, it's yours, to like, okay, there's too much activity. We're going to like wait a little bit. And then the consumer had such a bad taste in their mouth from that, because it's like, you think you have a deal and they're waiting a little bit and they're getting better offers. That's where, as an industry, we went to this like delayed negotiations across the board. And everybody's like, all right, we're going to do delayed negotiations. That way everybody gets a fair shake and somebody can't just come in and lock up this thing day one on market when there's other people that haven't had time to look at it and formulate their offer, et cetera. And so during that process, during that time period, I was just like trying to gobble up as much stuff as I could, because I knew that like it was going to end.
And it's ending now. It's ending now within regards to, case in point, I got a property, just went past delayed negotiations, and it's beautiful. Victor, schools, 4 beds, Farmington, all the great things you want. So it's getting weird. It's getting weird. What do you think? Like, do you think that maybe it's just the sellers, or I'm sorry, the buyers are now been trained to wait to go past, or to look for properties that are going past delay? What do you think that is? Is it just?
It's kind of it's a sentiment. So they say 20% of the agents do 80% of the volume. That's totally true. And so for me, as a professional that's representing somebody else, I just intuitively know what's going on in the marketplace. I feel it because I'm in it. And so I'm going to strategize based on the feedback that I'm getting from that particular listing, the vibe that I'm getting, if you will. So I agree with you. I think we're in this kind of weird time in the marketplace. Obviously Rochester's cyclical. When we get back to the spring, it's probably going to be, 2 dozen offers on properties. Now we're going into the fall and we're earlier than we usually are. Typically our sales are pretty strong through August, through September, and then they sort of tail off in like November. But this year, I agree with you. I think like something is off in that we're starting to slow down sooner. And if you look at the year over year volume, our volume is pretty compressed compared to 2022. So it's not surprising that this is happening either.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I do think that, I think quality will win no matter what. So that's, again, and guys, for those who don't know Mark, he manages 500 plus properties, owns 100 plus properties. He's been doing this since 2008. So he knows these markets and these cycles where a lot of newer people have only been, it's price go up only, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not going to always be the case. And you really got to know your markets. I thought it was really interesting listening to, what you've been saying, and a lot, you have so much content out there. It's actually pretty crazy, even just in, writing form content, let alone your podcasts. But you've been able to really, I think you're a pioneer. I really truly believe this, in finding markets that are about to appreciate. You're really good at finding, hey, I think this is going to be that next, hot spot. first of all, how do you find that for the people that are like, I can't compete in the Park Ave area. I can't compete in the
Right.
South Wedge anymore, where that's where I think you won back
Mhm.
in 2008, 2009, 2010. And today even you have those, your ear to the ground in those markets. But what can somebody who wants to find appreciation do to maybe find that next market, or is that dead? Is that gone now?
No, it repeats over and over and over again. You just need to know what you're looking for, and it's really simple, honestly. So, you want to track your price per foot. You want to look at your gross rent multipliers. But I think the key to the whole puzzle is going into your MSA and breaking it down into segments. And you got to know the streets, drive around a little bit. Arterials are going to typically be borders of some of these smaller segments. In Rochester, I've got a broken up into probably 50 to 100 different small segments. And then
Wow.
inside of that segment, I'm going to give it an average price per foot. I'm going to give it an average GRM. And that way, when I look at a property in one of those segments, I can quickly see if it is undervalued or overvalued, right? So I could say, okay, on average, we're at 100 a foot in this little tiny area. This one's selling for 60 a foot. Okay, let's jump on that. Or this one's listed for 120 foot. That's not really a good deal. So you can easily weed out the stuff. But as far as like finding the next marketplace, I like to look at the first time home buyer just because they're FHA, they've got a small deposit, they're still able to close a deal and they are going to buy something. But when they go into a market, like you're talking about Park Ave, South Wedge, whatever, they can't win because there's too many conventional offers with big deposits or cash offers with no inspection. So even if they take out their inspection, they still don't have a chance, right? So
Yep.
they'll go into those markets, they'll lose. And then when they have a realtor that knows what they're doing, they'll say, look, we're spinning our tires over here. I can't get you something in this neighborhood. There's too many offers. There's 12 offers on every single property. Maybe we'll get that one off, but like in the meantime, we're not going to give up on the market. Sure, we'll keep looking at it. But we'll also start exploring other areas. And, they can't go up in price per foot. They can only go down in price per foot because they're typically shopping at the top of their budget. And so as we get into these less expensive markets, they tend to gravitate towards the ones that are the best as far as, location, schools. In our city, it's all city schools, so that's not as relevant, but walkability, crime, and then your proximity to some of the hot spots, right? So right now we've got the North Winton Village trending. We've got the Merchants area trending. So we've got a lot of conventional buyers over there that keeps the prices up really high, full market value. And so these guys are just like, oh, I'll just buy on the border of that. I can cross Culver and I got a house on the east side of Culver that's selling for 150 to 200 a foot. As soon as I cross that road, I'm at like 60 to 100 a foot. It's a huge disparity. And they're like, I can just buy right there. I can literally see the house that traded for 50% more from my front yard. And
Right.
as they do that, the flippers are like, okay, back in when I started in Rochester, if you made 5 to like 15 grand on a flip, you were considered pretty savvy. You had good crews of guys that could get in and get stuff done on the cheap, and you could make a little bit of profit. And then you fast forward to this market where the prices have exploded and you could still buy distressed stock. You've got everybody flipping properties. They don't know what they're doing sometimes. And there's such a huge profit margin that it's become really in vogue to like be a flipper. And so all these people will come into that marketplace and they'll start turning that product that's trading for 60 to 100 and then reselling it using the comps from across the street back up closer to that 150 to 200 a foot. I mean, even if they hit 120 a foot, if they bought it for 60 a foot, they put like 20, 30 a foot into it, they're making a killing.
Yeah, it's wild because I know, talking to some of the OGs in Rochester, that there wasn't really a thing, like flipping wasn't really a thing in 2009, 2008, 2009, 2010. It was like you were saying, yeah, 5, 10,000, but that's nothing to
It's not
look.
worth your
It's
time.
fine. It's not
Yeah.
really worth your time like it is now. Let me ask you this, you know, what do you think are some areas that are a little bit under the radar that you are bullish on, if you're willing to share that, maybe one or
Yeah,
two areas?
absolutely. I'm an open book. So, Homestead Heights is going to pop 20 to 30% in the next 3 to 5 years. Now, if you get on the west side of that, it's going to take a lot longer. But if you stay from if you're looking at it, it's a big rectangle, right? And if you only go the east 50%, that's what I'm talking about. So the east 50% of Homestead Heights has got nowhere to go but up. The only downside on that neighborhood is that there's not much multifamily. It's predominantly single family. But if you're a flipper or if you're a buy and hold guy that doesn't mind picking up singles, you can still cash flow it, right? You get into that market, maybe you get a distressed sale. I bought 4 over there last year for under 100 grand each, right? And it's still kind of expensive for a single, but if you look at today's rents, we're getting 1,600 on a 3-bed in that neighborhood. It still cash flows, and then when I go to refi back out of it, my valuation will probably come in. We've got comps over there that are up to 250. And even if the bank is super conservative, I'll probably still hit $1.75 on these things that I picked up for 100. And so I've got all my equity back. If I want to take it, I could probably take a little bit more if I want to sacrifice that cash flow. So yeah, I would say Homestead Heights is a no-brainer. And anything over there. And then as you get into Irondequoit, the Irondequoit's been doing really well. So I'd be flipping in Irondequoit as well. Really anything that you can get in today's market seems to be fine. I mean, I've seen people flipping stuff on Lexington where they buy it for 20 and then sell it for 100. And they did the lipstick on a pig.
I think I've seen the same one. I saw that same one back in the day, not too long ago. Yeah, I really agree with you. I think we just picked up something near Baycliff. I know Wintroth, it's just went bananas on a couple of comps I just saw. And I mean, I agree. I think if you can stay in that little pocket, again, it's still going to be city schools, but the appreciation and the comps you can find they're just stupid. I mean, it's so stupid. But again, this is where it gets a little dicey though. I don't know what the banks are going to start doing when they start tightening up on what they're going to be given. I'm not going to go too further down. I'm an optimist. So we'll just have to see how this plays out. Question for you. So here's something I wanted your opinion on this. Well, I'm talking to a bunch of brokers right now. In your previous podcast, I've heard that you have a really nice system down with your follow-up, right? In your CRM. Mm-hmm. Does it boggle your mind that there's a good majority of realtors who have no CRM system at all? And I mean, and no follow-up system at all. Do you just kind of going this is too easy? I can, if I wanted to, I could go crazy.
Yeah, it's typically because I've trained so many agents. I would tell you, they want to be spoon-fed. They want to come into an organization that's going to hand them a lead. They're going to close the lead. They're going to make some money. And that's all they want to think about. So they don't really have the mentality of this is my business and I need to focus on my business, right? They're not paying for the lead to begin with. I think if you come into this as somebody that's actually paying your own money to get these leads, that if you don't convert it to a sale, you're going to go out of business, right? So from my perspective, nobody spoon-fed me. I didn't go on a team. I didn't even know what a lead was. And so when I first started shelling out my cash to receive these leads, it didn't matter what time the lead came in. It didn't matter what day of the week. It didn't matter what I was doing. If I was with my family, if I was on vacation, did not matter. I was still going to try to monetize the lead. And these guys they don't care. I'll be frank with you. They're getting stuff from their brokers, and their brokers are the brokers don't have the trackability either. They think they do, but really they need a strong manager. The people that I see doing the best are the teams that have a really strong manager. The team head is usually kind of like the figurehead. He started it. He got really good at sales. He's got a lot of really nice legacy clients that are probably buying some higher end stuff. And so he's kind of on autopilot. Then he's got a real strong manager, and then that manager is going to take the leads in, and he's going to keep accountability on those agents that are taking the leads, and he's going to give the best leads to the agents that are the most accountable, that have the most follow through, that have some kind of CRM, that they're able to track it and not only monetize it once, but get the referral and then get the repeat business as well.
Yeah. So what you just said sounds like work.
Yeah.
Right. That's the difference. But that is so good to hear for those listening. like the opportunity that you can have if you treat the business as like a franchise, right? Like, this is my franchise, this is my business, like this is my baby, that if you nurture, and you got to have a CRM, my Lord, you got to have a CRM. I couldn't believe I got off the phone with some people that don't have any buyers lists. Like, they don't even have like a buyers pool of people that when they find something, they can just quickly go and get a deal. And I'm really talking more of like on the commercial side. And that actually makes me think of another question I wanted to ask you is, when you look at what the commercial brokers, and because I know you buy commercial wise and manage, number one, are you doing any marketing to those deals, like for off market type approach? And then two, why aren't more commercial brokers doing, like, why don't they have an off-market strategy? Like, why don't these bigger businesses that are commercial buyers have an off-market strategy? Like, or is it because they have brokers in-house that are supposed to be cold calling, and maybe they are, I'm not sure. But what are your thoughts on those two things?
I think once you get into like the bigger unit counts, a lot of them, they have relationships and they only need to make a couple calls. They know who's going to buy it. A lot of times, like, I feel like as somebody that's kind of come up through from the beginning of buying my first single family house and wanting to break into that multifamily, that I'm at a disadvantage because they want to give it to their friends. And, so I've seen deals where, I'll set up an appointment. The commercial broker will like cancel it the day that I'm supposed to walk it. And then when I try to reschedule it, he's like, sorry, it's under contract. But that's happened to me more than one time in the commercial world. So I feel like Rochester is a little bit of a good old boys club.
Yeah.
I think the first part of the question was, what do we do? So we do direct call. So I'm a big proponent of cold calling, trying to make them warm calls if you can, if you got any reason whatsoever to be calling that person. And, given the volume that we do and the properties that we manage, I can typically make it a warm call versus a cold call simply by saying, hey, we manage the property 3 blocks away or 2 doors down or whatever. Or, hey, I just bought one next door to you, or, hey, one of my clients just bought one over here next to you. So I want to have that like real close proximity relationship where I can say, yeah, you're on this street and we actually did one 3 doors down and so they know the property, they know I'm not full of shit. And then they'll start talking to me. That's pretty much it. Cold calls, warm calls.
So for people listening, right? So real simple. Hey, I just bought a house on 123 Main Street, right across from yours. I was just curious if you ever be open to an offer on yours, right? It's right. It's right there for you. You have to have something. You have to have some sort of hook into a rapport building verbiage of sort, right? You kind of need something to bring that person closer together with you. And I think that's a really good way of doing it. But
I'll give you my hack.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, go.
So I did this on Whitney's podcast the other day, and I think it's really served me well. Excuse me. When I call somebody, I say, hey, this is Mark Updegraff. How are you? Typically they say, Mark who? Right? Like they don't know me or whatever. But I'm not saying, hey, this is Mark Updegraff from Updegraff Group Realty. So like, number one, they're thinking that they know me, right? And so that first puts them kind of off their guard. And then I can kind of pivot into what you just said, like, hey, I bought 123 ABC Street. But ultimately, what I want to do is just get them to talk. And right, people love to talk unless they think you're a salesperson. Then they just want to get you off the phone, right? So the trick is to get on the phone like their friends and just start rapping with them. And then, also know what other things that you could not necessarily sell, but let them buy, right? So when I'm converting a call, if they're just like, nope, I'm not going to sell, the next thing I'm going to ask them is like, okay, well, are you buying? Because like, dude, I call all kinds of people. I go to the steps. I work with wholesalers. I got deals for days. Like, what are you looking for? What's your buy box, right? So now I'm getting their buy box. They're starting to talk to me. They're starting to open up a little bit. And then we can get into the weeds from there, depending on where they take the conversation. Like I could sell a roof, I could sell gutter, I could sell whatever. I got enough vendors that we do tons of business with that I can get better pricing, still put a small markup on it, 5% for my trouble to orchestrate it, and everybody's happy. And what that does is it helps build that relationship. So when they are ready to sell or when they are ready to buy, they're already talking to you because you just helped them with their gutters, or you just helped them with their roof, or you just helped them with whatever. So finding those small wins to keep in contact and to stay top of mind with those people is huge.
So I wanted to ask you this. You do a ton, right? There's so many different things you guys do. You have your brokerage, you have management. And by the way, so with management, that's just easy money, right? Just management in general is just, it's easy cash.
Nothing could be further from the truth. Yeah.
Right. So here's my question. And people listening, where they're like, should I start a management company? I got a couple properties. So right from the bat, people got a couple properties. Should they start a management company?
Absolutely. I mean, it depends on what their end goal is. Like when I started the management company, I wanted to be able to control my assets. I didn't really trust the people that I had interviewed in my marketplace to run my units. I thought they were going to devalue them, get crappy tenants, the whole nine. So I was kind of forced into doing it, but I knew by running the pro forma that I was going to be subsidizing that company for a number of years until I hit that critical mass of units. And it's going to depend on, your ability to get yourself up to that critical mass. I tell people in our marketplace, we've got with our expense, I think every marketplace is a little bit different. So this unit count might not translate to like Phoenix or Florida, but it might be similar. I say like 150 minimally is how many units you need to be able to run an effective company, have enough revenue coming in that you can have the payroll going out to be able to take care of it. Otherwise, you just bought yourself the worst job on the planet.
It's so bad. It's so bad. And I mean, we manage our own, and and here's what my question, my second part was because that's not really a revenue generating activity of just kind of like, that's more defense, right? Not offense. So like that's what I'm trying to like in my brain is say to myself, all right, you kind of just got to scale that to either hire somebody, right? Or have enough where you can maybe have a third party, and then oh, by the way, it's nice that you already know how managing goes so that you appreciate your manager, right? I always think you should at least own it for at least a year or whatever you buy, so that you now understand why you're paying the manager what they're supposed to be being paid, right? But do you think also at the same time that, like for you, like what I'm trying to get sold away from doing it. Like it's kind of stopping me from doing the more buying and growing the business side. Like I know you guys do like construction company and you have contractors. Like, was that necessary? Was that like a really good revenue generating business for you? Or was that something where it was like, well, we did it, probably wouldn't do it again, but it is paying the bills?
We do it for kind of the same reason we did the property management. That's to control our own destiny. A lot of times when you deal with contractors, you're subject to their availability. So if they all of a sudden land a big fish client and they're doing a huge renovation project and they're getting paid buku bucks, you're not going to see them. They're not going to do your work. So it was really hard to find consistency and quality, right? Because, they got to have workers' comp, they got to have general liability. And whenever you're hiring a subcontractor that has all those mandates on them, they're not, working for Craigslist pricing. They're not working for Facebook pricing. They can't because they got all that overhead. So you're paying a premium. So we did it because we knew that they were putting markup on their hours in addition to the workers' comp, the general liability. And so we could control our pricing a little bit by having those people on payroll, and then we can put out fires when we need to. Right. So we're running a job, the job's like a 2-month job or whatever. If we got some emergency, we can grab a couple guys, send them over to the emergency, put out the fire, and then bring them back to the project that they're working on. And it really hasn't affected that project.
Okay. All right. That's fair. I like it. Now let's go pivot quick to, your background in science and technology. do you see anything that, like, are you messing around with AI or ChatGPT and how to get more leads, or how to just maybe run your business maybe more efficiently, or is that not something you've messed around with?
Yeah, this year, as the market has been, it's given me more time to invest in technology, time specifically, but also monetarily. So yeah, I've got professional subscription for ChatGPT. I've got Midjourney, and I hired a marketing person full time, which I never really had a full-time marketing person. I had a part-time marketing person from time to time, kind of off and on. And I've hired third-party companies for marketing, which is kind of like meh results.
Yeah.
They're like doing it for a bunch of other companies. So it makes you look relevant and people see you, but it's not really as catered to your personal vision as it should be when you have somebody that's full-time. So yeah, we're using all those technologies. I want to know how they use them. So when I'm working with my marketing person, I can talk to her about how she's implementing the technology, and she could kind of stay on the forefront as well and kind of bring new products to my attention. So yeah, we're definitely using that, and I'm working on more organic lead flow today than I was when I first started. When I first started, I wasn't from Rochester. I was only in my mid-20s, so I felt like it was going to be hard to like have any kind of like notoriety, if you will. Like, who's going to hire a young guy to do real estate? And so I paid money for leads. I just straight up bought the leads. And now that I've been doing this for 15 years and I've got a good track record, I got tons of good reviews. Now we're focused on the organic approach, and we're picking one channel, right? And so instead of trying to like put everything out on all these 15 different social media platforms, we're going to track one channel really, really carefully. And then, maybe next year we'll do 2 channels, see how they perform. And then we'll just kind of earmark dollars and time based on the results that we're getting. I tell you, LinkedIn's doing really well. I've had, probably 20 to 30 organic leads coming through just based on what I'm producing on my feed and my content. I've monetized a few of them. The other 25 I plan on monetizing. When I say like I get a lead that's solid, it's probably going to lead to some revenue at some point. But I'm in it for the long haul. So I've had leads that take, years to monetize, but I'm okay with that. I'm a relationship guy. I'm building a business. I like people. So it's kind of like, you've got these really great friendships with a lot of different people that cross your paths. And if you treat it like that, it's not like work, right? You're having fun and you're talking to people and you're trying to help them.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think people, when they first start out, they go crazy and they go, okay, I'm going to do Google ads, and then I'm going to do Facebook ads, and I'm going to go and I'm going to hire some cold callers, and then you just blow that whole thing up because you're not focusing on maybe 1 or 2 things. Our strong suit was cold calling because that's what we did at our previous sales job. So we're really good at it, and we knew CRM systems because that's what we had for our old sales job. And so it was like, wow, no one's really doing this. And now a lot of people are, but you just got to be better, right? And you got to
Right.
figure out ways of elevating. And I think we all need to figure out a way to elevate, especially in this market. Well, let's get to the speed round. I mean, I really would like to talk more with you. We have a lot we could talk about. Like, I know
Mhm.
you're moving into, I know you've been in commercial, but I know you're making a bigger leap into, buying commercial and multifamily, and that's a long game, right? It's just a long game. You're not doing any like mailers for that. You're just strictly just working the leads you have, working the people that but nothing really like. Are you cold calling multifamily like in this area? Is that part of what you do too?
Yeah, I'm training guys on cold calling, and as part of that, I don't charge people for mentorship. So I get a lot of young guys that come to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to quit my job. I want to be in real estate." And so I start training them on the cold calling side of things. I kind of teach them the methodology that I talked about a little bit earlier. Get them into it. I listen, like we do it in a room together, so I can give them feedback. I can hear them. They can hear me do it. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do is empower them that when they do find a deal that they can bring it to me and then I can help them sort it out. Right. It's because they're new. So that's been my philosophy for the last 5 years. And it's been pretty good. When you help somebody else, they're going to be willing to, bring you those deals first. And even if I can't make any money on it, I can still help them make money on it some way.
Well, you'll sift. That's a great way of sifting through people who really are about it or not, right? Hey,
Mhm.
Marty. Hey, Mark. I really want to do this, and hey, I'm ready to go. I'm really ready to do it. Okay, cool. This is what it is, by the way. So
Yeah.
here's a list of people. You got to call them and see if they'd be interested in potentially selling. And right away they go, you know what? I think I'm good. I think I'm all set. Maybe this isn't for me, right? Or
Right.
this at least side of it is not for me.
Yeah.
That's it's kind of interesting that you had to kind of do that, because my thought process is, you're an analytical guy, right? And I only say that because of your background with like technology and math, and maybe you're not analytical. But I mean, just talking with you with the gross rent multiplier and your pro forma stuff, that's something that gives you energy, it sounds like. A lot of people that are that type of person have a lot of analysis paralysis, and they don't take the aggressive stance of going in and making an offer, or picking up the phone. Do you think you have that because, number one, you kind of needed to in order to break through in the industry, and two, the background of your family having like that entrepreneurship, your father being an entrepreneur, and kind of seeing like, you kill what you eat what you kill. Like, do you think that had something to do with it?
Well, my dad is pretty introverted. And so he's formed his business based on good service. So his whole mantra is like, I'm going to provide awesome service. I'm going to shake your hand. I'm going to do exactly what I told you I'm going to do when I'm going to do it. And he's gotten lots of repeat business that way. And he's built his business slow and steady that way. In real estate, that's probably not the best way to go, right? That's the ocean's too big to have that approach. So I would say, I kind of forget what the beginning part of the question was. Hit me again with
Well,
that. I'm sorry.
I was just talking in circles, basically, other than I was saying, I feel like the engineering analytical people have a lot of analysis paralysis,
Mm,
and they don't all the time,
yeah.
quite often they're afraid to pull the trigger.
Yep.
And I know you have that not analysis paralysis, but you're analytical. I was just wondering
Yeah.
why you're different than a lot of these other guys, other than you had that maybe entrepreneurship background, and like, why do you have urgency is really the question. Like, what is it that
Yeah.
makes you urgent?
I think, doing the sales side of things, jumping in as a realtor, that I know I still had obligations to my family to bring home money and I had to make some sales. So having that sales background where you're out of your comfort zone, I was never like salesy, but I knew that I had to perform. So I had to make appointments, I had to show houses, and I had to educate people enough to the point where they were ready to pull the trigger. And being a 25-year-old guy, not from this area with no background in real estate, kind of just like forced me to be more extroverted and willing to talk to people and to make moves. So, if you look at the first deal I did, I bought before I had my real estate license. And so that was kind of like the aha moment where I was like, okay, I can do this. I just have to follow this model, very analytical. We can't spend too much. We got to be conservative on our rents. We have to account for swings in the marketplace. You're not always going to get 1,200 in rent. Maybe you're only going to get 900, but maybe you'll get 1,200. So we're going to underwrite to 900. And then just kind of following that plan gave me the confidence that if I was conservative in my underwriting, that I really couldn't go wrong. And then on the like in being in the forefront and making deals and forming relationships and bird dogging and doing all that stuff, that was kind of from my sales side, right? Because I knew in sales, you got to make that happen. You got to get out there. You got to talk to people. You got to get the phone ringing. You got to network. You got to tell people what you're up to. So I just think those two things combined have just propelled me forward. And instead of sticking with singles, you can only make so much on a single family as a rental, and then you can make 4 times as much maybe on a 4 family. And then as you get into the higher unit counts, it's economies of scale. So I've always naturally kind of wanted to progress into that direction.
Yeah, so that my takeaway was sales. Like, that's where you get urgency from. And I think
Mm-hmm.
for anybody who is thinking about, maybe going into sales, go into sales. You're going to be better at any other job because of it. You're going to have a better communication skills. You're going to have more. I just believe you're going to go, okay, I'm in control of my own destiny. And if you're that type of person who wants to be in control of their own destiny, then sales is the absolute best career that you can do. And then you're just going to be so much better setting appointments, all those things in real estate, especially realtors, where it blows my mind, where these, some of them are just whimsically going about their day waiting for a lead or a showing or an appointment. It doesn't happen. You got to go out and get it. All right. So let's get to the speed round.
Mhm.
We haven't done this in a while, but
Mhm.
I need to get back to it. So let's get to it. If there's one metric you could track in your business, what do you choose?
I mean, I guess it's got to be cash flow, right? Cash flow is
Works for
king.
me. Cash
Yeah.
flow's king. What book do you recommend, or maybe what's the most recent book you're reading currently on business or real estate?
I'm reading Traction right now. It's really good. I just finished Who Not How. That was also a good mind shift. I'm surprised I didn't read it sooner. If you want something that's not like business oriented, The Fountainhead is really good. I don't know if you've read it, but the main character is an architect, and he's like one that's kind of like looked down upon by the community, but he builds like the most awesome buildings, and it's kind of his story of how he comes up through it. And there's like 5 or 6 other main characters. It's a really great book.
All right, thank you. I haven't heard that one. I like that. I love Who Not How. Love Who Not How. Changed my life.
Mhm.
What do you do intentionally to network, or are you a part of masterminds? Like, what do you
Mhm.
do to network with business folks?
Yeah, so I finally came up for air after just like 10 years in the trenches. And this year specifically, I joined the Chamber of Commerce. I've been going to all their business made social events, which has been huge. I've met, at least 100 plus people. I've volunteered for a few different things that they do to just get me even more rooted into their organization. We've got some other networking type things in Rochester. I'm a realtor, so I'm part of like the young professional realtors network. Even there's no age restriction, so they let old people in as well, even though it's called the Young Realtors Network. I am in a masterminds. I joined one back in January. It's been going pretty good. I'm glad that I did that. So I've attended a few conferences. I think conferences are worth their weight in gold, right? Even if you pay a couple grand to go to the conference, the amount of connections that you're going to get, and not only just connections in general, but like specific targeted connections towards what you're trying to learn and what you're trying to achieve. So if you go to a conference that focuses on that, the people that are there, even if it's kind of a broad topic, you'll be able to find people that have a similar trajectory that are maybe a couple steps ahead of you, and you can pick their brain, you can become friends with them, and then you can ask them questions when you've got those tough questions that you don't know how to answer. So
I agree.
definitely.
100%. If there's a conference and you're like, I don't know about the money, buy it, put it on a credit card, figure it out, because you'll meet that one person who will honestly could change your life. I mean, I met through I joined a mastermind, pulled the trigger, and then started a podcast. He told me about this other conference, which got us into commercial, and which has been dynamite. But you got to take a leap of faith. If like they all say, the best investment is in yourself. And if you're not willing to do that, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Last question. If you lost it all, Mark, what would you do? Would you go back to real estate, or would you do something else? I mean, if you lost it all, what would you do?
Oh, absolutely. Real estate. I mean, once you know the power of real estate, there's no going back. So if I lost it all, it would be market specific, right? So it depends on when I lost it all. But if I lost it all today, I'd be focused on saving up enough capital to do a flip, because there's been no other time that I've been in real estate where you could make the amount of profit on a flip that you can make today. And I would take that profit and I put it into passive investing.
That's it, folks. That's Mark Updegraff. I mean, that is exactly what, I would tell people to do, is absolutely look at flipping, but I would have a mentor first. Now, he was saying, if you were starting back from nothing, but he still has all his information in his
Mhm.
brain, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have that information in your brain, I would probably do exactly what Mark did. Get my license, learn the markets, driving for dollars, and then work with a Mark and shoot them deals, and then say, hey, instead of me taking an assignment fee, can I just follow you and walk the property with you? He might still give you some cash, but he'll be like, listen, you can walk this, you can see what I'm doing, you can see all the contractors. It's invaluable stuff, Mark. Thanks for coming on the show, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah, Marty, thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
If people are looking for information on management, if they want
Mhm.
to talk to you about, hey, I got some money I want to put into a deal, or if they're just interested in what you got to say, where can they find you?
My cell is 585-314-9790, 585-314-9790. They can go to updegraff.info to get more information on all the various companies. And we are launching a fund for distressed foreclosure properties too. So if they want to get into that, feel free to reach out.
That's it, folks. Mark, thanks for coming on, brother. I will see you soon, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks, Marty.
Take care, guys.
Thank you for tuning into the Marty Grizzanti Show. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, leave us an honest rating and review. If you're on Spotify, make sure you follow us for weekly episodes.